Commander Sarah Chen stared at the silent space around Kepler 4042c. Her patrol fleet had answered a distress call from the mining colony 3 hours ago. Now they floated above a world that should have been bustling with 50,000 miners and their families. Instead, all communication had stopped. "Ma'am, we're picking up no life signs from the surface," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "But the colony structures are still intact." Sarah felt a cold knot form in her stomach. In her 15 years of service, she had seen pirates, equipment failures, and natural disasters. But a complete communication blackout with no structural damage was new. "Prepare a landing team. Full combat gear." The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere toward New Shanghai Colony. As they broke through the clouds, Sarah could see the neat rows of prefab buildings, the massive mining equipment, and the transportation hubs. Everything looked normal from above. Too normal. When they landed, the silence hit them first. A mining colony should be noisy. Drilling equipment, transport vehicles, people talking and working. Instead, they heard only the wind across the rocky landscape and the hum of their own equipment. "Spread out. Teams of 3. Check every building," Sarah ordered. The first team found them in the main residential block. Sarah's comm crackled to life with Sergeant Williams's shaky voice. "Commander, you need to see this. All of them." Sarah jogged across the compound to Building 7. When she stepped inside, her training kept her from throwing up, but just barely. The colonists were dead, all of them. But they hadn't just been killed. They had been arranged. Bodies sat at tables in the common area, positioned as if they were having dinner. Their faces were locked in expressions of pure terror. But worse were the precise cuts across their bodies, too clean and systematic to be from any human weapon. Someone had taken their time. "Ma'am," called Torres from across the room. "There's something here you need to see." A strange device sat on one of the tables. It was clearly alien, made from some kind of crystal that pulsed with soft blue light. As Sarah approached, the device activated, projecting a hologram into the air. The image showed a creature unlike anything in the human databases. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with a body that looked like living crystal. Sharp edges jutted from its arms and back, and its head was a smooth dome with no visible eyes or mouth. Most disturbing was how it moved. With the deliberate precision of a surgeon, the hologram shifted to show the creature's work. Sarah watched in horror as it methodically cut into a living colonist, ignoring the man's screams. The alien seemed to be studying the human's reactions, taking notes on some kind of crystalline tablet. It wasn't killing for food or territory. It was experimenting. "Check the other buildings," Sarah ordered, though she already knew what they would find. Building after building revealed the same scene. Families arranged around dinner tables, workers positioned at their stations, children placed in their classrooms, all dead, all showing signs of the same precise cuts and procedures. Someone had spent days, maybe weeks, conducting experiments on living humans. In the colony's communication center, they found more of the crystal devices. These contained recordings of the creatures at work. Sarah forced herself to watch, knowing she would need every detail for her report. The aliens worked with scientific detachment, treating humans like laboratory animals. They tested pain responses, survival limits, and psychological breaking points with cold efficiency. Dr. Marcus Webb, the fleet's xenobiologist, examined the alien devices with shaking hands. "Commander, these aren't random killings. This is systematic research. They were studying us. Any idea who they are?" Webb pulled up his files on the portable scanner. "Based on the crystal technology and body structure, I think these are Cathara. We made first contact with them about 2 years ago. They claim to be peaceful researchers." "Peaceful researchers don't do this to children," Sarah said, remembering the small bodies in the school building. The final discovery came in the colony's main computer. The aliens had left a message, somehow translating it into human language. Sarah read it aloud to her team. "We thank the human specimens for their cooperation in our research. Your species shows interesting fear responses and survival adaptations. We have gathered sufficient data from this location and will continue our studies at other human settlements. Do not attempt to contact us. You exist for our research purposes only." Sarah closed the file with trembling fingers. In her years of service, she had dealt with hostile aliens before. There had been territorial disputes, resource conflicts, and cultural misunderstandings. Those could be resolved through diplomacy or limited military action, This was different. The Cathara weren't fighting humans over territory or resources. They saw humans as test subjects. "Ma'am, urgent message from Admiral Vasquez," reported Torres. The Admiral's hologram appeared in the communication center. Admiral Helena Vasquez looked tired and grim. "Commander Chen, we've received similar reports from 17 other colonies across 3 sectors. Same pattern, same alien signature. Total casualties are approaching 800,000. Sarah felt the number hit her like a physical blow. 800,000 people tortured and killed for alien science experiments. "What are our orders, ma'am?" "I'm recalling all patrol fleets to Sol system. We need to discuss our response with the Defense Council. The Cathara have made their intentions clear." As Sarah's fleet prepared to leave Kepler 442c, they detected an incoming transmission. It came from deep space using Cathara technology. Sarah ordered it put on screen. The same crystal creature from the recordings appeared. When it spoke, the translation device rendered its words in a neutral human voice, making the message even more chilling. "Human military vessels, you have discovered our research site. We are pleased by your prompt response. It shows your species maintains strong social bonds, which will be useful for our psychological studies. We will continue our research on your people. Your reactions to loss and fear provide excellent data. Do not interfere with our work. You exist to serve our scientific advancement." The transmission ended. Sarah stared at the blank screen for a long moment. In all her years of service, she had never encountered an enemy that saw humans as nothing more than laboratory animals. Pirates could be negotiated with. Territorial aggressors could be reasoned with or fought off. But how do you fight an enemy that doesn't see you as a real person? "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "Maximum burn." As her fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, Sarah thought about the children in that school building. They had been arranged at their desks, cut open and studied while still alive, positioned as if they were still learning. The Cathara had spent time making sure the scene looked normal from a distance. The aliens weren't just conducting experiments. They were sending a message. Humans meant nothing to them except as sources of data. They could kill entire colonies and arrange the bodies like dolls, just to see how other humans would react. Sarah had served in conflicts where the enemy wanted human territory, or human resources, or to defeat human military forces. She had never faced an enemy that wanted to study humans like insects. The Cathara didn't hate humanity. They didn't consider humans important enough to hate. That was somehow worse than any declaration of war. By the time her fleet reached Earth, Sarah had made a decision. Some lines couldn't be crossed. Some enemies couldn't be negotiated with. The Cathara had declared war on humanity's right to exist as anything more than test subjects. They were about to learn what humans did to threats that couldn't be reasoned with. General Thomas Kane stood before the largest holographic display in Sol System Command, watching red markers spread across the star map like a disease. Each marker represented a human colony that had gone silent in the past week. Each one meant thousands of people dead. "Final count?" he asked Admiral Vasquez. 843,000 confirmed casualties across 21 colonies, she reported. The Cathara hit every settlement within 50 light-years of their known space. No survivors. Kane studied the pattern. The attacks weren't random. The aliens had targeted specific types of colonies: research stations, mining operations, and agricultural worlds. Places where humans worked in isolation, far from military protection. The Cathara had planned this carefully. "What about diplomatic contact?" "We tried," said Ambassador Chen from the Foreign Affairs Division. "They responded with another attack. Hit the Luna Research Station yesterday. 3,000 scientists, dead. They left the same message: we exist for their research purposes only." Kane closed his eyes for a moment. He had hoped for some kind of misunderstanding, some way to resolve this without military action. But the Cathara had made their position clear. They didn't see humans as people. They saw test subjects. Options? Admiral Vasquez activated another display. Standard military response would be to secure our borders, reinforce colony defenses, and attempt to negotiate from a position of strength. But sir, this isn't a standard situation. Explain. The Cathara aren't fighting for territory or resources. They're hunting us for scientific study. They've proven they can penetrate our defenses and strike anywhere they want. Traditional defensive measures won't work against an enemy that sees our entire species as lab animals. Kane nodded grimly. In his 30 years of military service, he had dealt with aggressive alien species before. There had been the Centauri border wars, the vegan trade conflicts, and the incident with the Rigel Consortium. All of those had been resolved through diplomacy or limited military action. This was different. Dr. Kowalski, status on Project Deep Vault? Dr. Elena Kowalski stepped forward, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of stress. All systems are operational, General. We've been developing these weapons for 40 years, hoping we'd never need them. Brief the Council. Kowalski activated a secured holographic display. The room filled with technical specifications for weapons that looked like something from a nightmare. After first contact with alien species, we realized humanity might someday face a threat that couldn't be reasoned with. We developed contingency weapons designed for total warfare. The first weapon system appeared in the hologram. Quantum disruptors. They unravel molecular bonds at the subatomic level. Anything hit by these weapons simply ceases to exist. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Kane studied the technical specifications. Clean, efficient, terrifying. Range? Planetary. We can target entire continents from orbit. The next weapon was even worse. Nanoplagues. Microscopic machines designed to target specific alien physiologies. They reproduce using the target's own biological systems, then shut down vital functions. The plague spreads until every member of the target species is dead. How long? Asked Admiral Vasquez. Depending on population density, complete species extinction in 6 to 18 months. The final weapon made Kane's stomach turn. Reality disruptors. They alter the fundamental laws of physics in localized areas. We can make star systems uninhabitable, collapse dimensional barriers, or create zones where matter cannot exist in stable forms. Ambassador Chen looked pale. These weapons could destroy entire civilizations. That's the point, Kane said quietly. The question is whether we use them. The room fell silent. Kane looked around the table at the faces of humanity's leadership. These people had spent their careers trying to build peaceful relationships with alien species. Now they faced a choice that went against everything they believed in. Sir, said Captain James Rodriguez, who had been quietly reviewing tactical reports, I've been studying the Cathara attack patterns. They're not just killing our people randomly, they're testing our responses. How so? Rodriguez highlighted several attacks on the star map. Each colony was hit using different methods. Some were attacked directly, others were infiltrated slowly. They're studying how we respond to different types of threats. This isn't just research on individual humans. They're researching human civilization. What's your assessment? They're planning something bigger. These attacks are just the beginning. They want to understand how we function as a species so they can capture more of us for long-term study. Kane felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. The Cathara weren't satisfied with killing isolated colonies. They wanted to understand human society well enough to harvest humans on a massive scale. The attacks would continue until they felt ready to move against Earth itself. Dr. Kowalski, how quickly can we deploy deep vault weapons? The nanoplagues are ready now. Quantum disruptors need another week for final targeting systems. Reality disruptors require 2 weeks for safety protocols. Safety protocols? To make sure we don't accidentally destroy our own star systems, sir. Kane made his decision. He had sworn an oath to protect humanity from all threats. The Cathara had made it clear they would never stop hunting humans for their experiments. Diplomatic solutions were impossible when the enemy didn't recognize your right to exist. Authorization code Alpha 77 Omega, Kane said. I'm activating protocol cleansing. The room buzzed with activity as staff officers began implementing humanity's first xenocide protocol. Kane watched them work and wondered if he was making the right choice. Then he remembered the reports from the colonies. Children arranged at school desks after being cut open alive, families positioned around dinner tables, while aliens studied their death agonies. Captain Rodriguez, you'll lead the first strike team. Your target is the Cathara research facility at Xerion Prime. Intelligence suggests they're holding 10,000 human prisoners there. Rodriguez nodded grimly. Understood, sir. What about prisoners? Kane looked at the tactical reports. Based on what they had found at the colonies, any humans still alive in Kythera facilities had been subjected to weeks or months of experiments. The kindest thing might be to end their suffering quickly. Rescue if possible. But don't risk your people for prisoners who might be beyond help. Sir, there's something else, Admiral Vasquez said. Our deep space monitors have detected Kythera transmissions. They're contacting other species, sharing their research data on humans. Kane felt the last of his doubts disappear. The Kythera weren't just threatening humanity directly. They were spreading information about human weaknesses to other alien species. They were turning humans into a galaxy-wide target for any alien race that wanted easy test subjects. Then we make sure there are no Kythera left to share data, Kane said. Admiral, deploy the extermination fleet. Dr. Kowalski, prepare all deep vault weapons for immediate deployment. Ambassador Chen, send a message to all human colonies. Full military alert, all civilians to report to hardened shelters. As the meeting broke up and officers rushed to implement his orders, Kane remained staring at the star map. In the next few weeks, humanity would either destroy an entire alien species or be destroyed themselves. There was no middle ground with the Kythera. He thought about the first alien species humanity had contacted 50 years ago. The meeting had been peaceful, leading to trade agreements and cultural exchange. He had hoped all first contacts would go that smoothly. Instead, humanity had learned that some alien species were truly monsters. Kane activated his personal communicator. This is General Kane. Execute Operation Cleansing. Show no mercy. The die was cast. Humanity was going to war not for territory or resources, but for the right to exist as something more than laboratory animals. The Kythera had made this choice for them. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Retribution, watching 47 human fleets move into position around Kythera space. Each fleet carried enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. In her 30 years of service, she had never seen humanity mobilize for total war like this. All fleets report ready. Admiral, reported Commander Torres from the tactical station. Sarah studied the display showing Kythera territory. Intelligence had identified 63 Kythera worlds, ranging from small research outposts to massive colonies with billions of inhabitants. In the next 72 hours, humanity planned to hit them all simultaneously. Dr. Webb, final analysis of Kythera physiology? Dr. Marcus Webb looked tired and haunted. The past weeks of studying alien anatomy had changed him. The nanoplagues are perfectly calibrated, Admiral. The Kythera respiratory and circulatory systems will absorb the microscopic machines within hours of exposure. Once inside, the nanobots will reproduce using the aliens' own biological materials. How long until complete extinction? 6 months for their homeworld, 3 months for smaller colonies. The plague will spread through their air and water supplies. There's no cure and no defense, Sarah nodded. Part of her felt sick about what they were planning. But then she remembered the recordings from the human colonies. The systematic torture. The children arranged at their desks after being dissected alive. The Kythera had chosen this war. Captain Rodriguez, status on the prisoner rescue mission. James Rodriguez appeared on the communication screen from his ship. The final justice. We're moving into position around Zarian Prime. Long-range sensors confirm approximately 10,000 human life signs in the research facility. Any sign of Kythera defenses? Minimal. They don't seem to expect a military response. Their ships are designed for research, not combat. That was the Kythera's first mistake. They had studied human psychology and biology, but they had never bothered to study human military capabilities. They saw humans as primitive test subjects, not as a species capable of building weapons that could destroy entire civilizations. Lieutenant Park, status on Genesis bombs. Sophie Park, humanity's best combat engineer, checked her instruments. All devices armed and ready, Admiral. We've targeted 12 Kythera worlds for complete planetary restructuring. Sarah felt a chill at the clinical language. Planetary restructuring meant using reality disruption technology to rewrite the fundamental laws of physics on those worlds. The planets would become uninhabitable to any form of life that Kythera could survive in. Begin the operation. All fleets commenced simultaneous assault. Across Kythera space, human fleets opened fire. The aliens had never experienced anything like it. Their crystal ships designed for scientific research crumpled under the assault of quantum disruptors. Their defensive systems, built to repel other research species, were useless against weapons designed for total warfare. "Admiral, Rodriguez is reporting from Zerion Prime," Torres announced. Rodriguez's voice came through strained and angry. "We've reached the research facility. Admiral, you need to know what we found here." The main screen shifted to show the interior of the Kythera research station. Sarah had seen the recordings from the colonies, but this was worse. Thousands of humans hung in crystal chambers, kept alive while aliens conducted experiments on them. Some had been there for months, their bodies showing the results of systematic surgical procedures. "How many can we save?" Sarah asked. "Maybe 1,000, Rodriguez replied. "The rest." "Admiral, they've been so extensively experimented on that their bodies can't survive outside the life support systems. Some of them are begging us to end their suffering." Sarah closed her eyes. The Kythera hadn't just killed humans. They had turned them into living specimens, keeping them alive for extended torture. Any remaining doubts about Operation Cleansing disappeared. "Do what you think is right, Captain. Then destroy that facility." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, there's something else. We found their research archives. They've been doing this to other species for centuries. We're not their first victims." The communication cut to recordings from the Kythera archives. Sarah watched alien species she didn't recognize being subjected to the same systematic torture humans had endured. The Kythera had been monsters long before they encountered humanity. They had destroyed dozens of civilizations for their research. "Dr. Webb, how many species have they eliminated?" Webb studied the alien data streaming across his screen. "At least 37 intelligent species completely extinct. Hundreds more reduced to small populations kept for ongoing experiments. Admiral, they've been doing this for over 2,000 years." Sarah felt her resolve harden further. The Kythera weren't just threatening humanity. They were a threat to all intelligent life in the galaxy. They had turned scientific research into systematic genocide, treating entire civilizations as laboratory animals. "Fleet status report. Kythera space forces are collapsing," Torres reported. "Their ships can't match our firepower. We're detecting massive evacuations from their core worlds." "Where are they going?" "Deep space, Admiral. It looks like they're trying to scatter to avoid complete destruction." Sarah considered this. Scattered Kythera survivors could rebuild their civilization elsewhere and resume their experiments on other species. That couldn't be allowed to happen. "All fleets, new orders. Hunt down every fleeing ship. No Kythera vessel leaves their space alive." "Admiral," Commander Martinez called from the sensor station. "We're picking up a massive transmission from the Kythera homeworld." The main screen filled with the image of what appeared to be the Kythera leader, a massive crystal being surrounded by smaller aliens. When it spoke, the translation came through in the same flat tone they had heard before. "Human military forces, you have exceeded our calculations. We did not anticipate such an extreme response to our research activities. We are prepared to negotiate. We will cease all experiments on human subjects in exchange for your withdrawal from our territory." Sarah almost laughed. Even now, facing extinction, the Kythera couldn't understand that they had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They thought this was a territorial dispute that could be resolved through negotiation. "Open a channel," Sarah ordered. The alien leader waited expectantly for her response. Sarah looked into its faceted crystal face and spoke clearly. "There will be no negotiation. You have forfeited your right to exist. What you did to human children alone justifies your complete extinction. But your archives show you've been doing this to other species for centuries. You are a threat to all intelligent life. This is not a war for territory or resources. This is an extermination." The Kythera leader seemed confused by her response. "You would destroy an entire species for defending themselves?" "We were only following our nature as researchers." "Your nature is the problem," Sarah replied. "Some natures are too dangerous to be allowed to continue." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Dr. Kowalski, deploy the nanoplagues. Target every Kythera world simultaneously." Across their fleet, specialized missiles launched toward Kythera planets. Each missile contained billions of microscopic machines designed to target Kythera biology specifically. Within hours, the nanobots would be in the air and water of every Kythera world. "Genesis bombs away," reported Lieutenant Park. On 12 Kythera worlds, reality itself began to change. The laws of physics that allowed Kythera biology to function stopped working. Gravity reversed, time flowed backward, matter ceased to exist in stable forms. Those planets would never support life again. Admiral, we're detecting Cathara ships attempting to flee to other star systems, Torres reported. Deploy hunter-killer squadrons. Every ship, every escape pod, every life raft. Nothing with Cathara technology gets away. Commander Rodriguez's voice came through from the research station. Facility destroyed, Admiral. We saved 800 prisoners. The rest, we gave them peace, Sarah nodded. 800 survivors out of 10,000 prisoners. The Cathara had turned the other 9,000 into living experiments too damaged to survive rescue. That alone justified what humanity was doing. Fleet commanders, this is Admiral Chen. The Cathara have shown us what they do to species they consider inferior. They've had 2,000 years to prove they can coexist with other intelligent life. Instead, they've spent that time turning science into systematic torture. We will not give them another chance. Over the next 48 hours, human fleets methodically destroyed every Cathara ship, station, and outpost they could find. The nanoplague spread across Cathara worlds, beginning the process of species extinction. Reality bombs made entire star systems uninhabitable. Final count? Sarah asked. 61 of 63 Cathara worlds completely sterilized, Torres reported. 2 billion aliens dead in the first wave. The nanoplagues will eliminate the rest within 6 months. Survivors? Long-range sensors indicate one research vessel escaped the initial assault. It's heading for deep space beyond our tracking range. Sarah studied the tactical display. One ship probably carrying the last few thousand Cathara in existence. They couldn't be allowed to escape and rebuild their civilization elsewhere. Set course to intercept. We finish this. As the Retribution turned toward deep space, Sarah thought about the choice they had made. General Thomas Kane stood on the command deck of the flagship Humanity's Wrath, watching the final approach to Zeftar Prime, the Cathara homeworld. Behind him, a fleet of 200 human warships prepared for the last major assault of Operation Cleansing. 3 billion Cathara lived on the planet below, including their ruling council and primary research facilities. Sir, incoming transmission from the planet's surface, reported Commander Mitchell. Put it through. The main screen filled with the image of several Cathara leaders, their crystal bodies reflecting the light from their underground chambers. When they spoke, their translated words carried a tone Kane had never heard from them before. Fear. Human military commander, we request immediate ceasefire negotiations. We are prepared to offer significant concessions for the preservation of our species. Kane studied their faces, looking for any sign of genuine remorse or understanding. He saw only the same cold calculation they had shown while torturing human children. They weren't sorry for what they had done. They were just surprised that humans had fought back effectively. What concessions? Kane asked. We will cease all research activities involving human subjects. We will provide you with advanced biotechnology developed over centuries of study. We will share the location of other species that might threaten human expansion. Kane almost laughed. Even facing extinction, the Cathara were trying to turn other species into targets for human aggression. They couldn't understand that this wasn't about territory or resources. It was about justice. Counteroffer, Kane said. Unconditional surrender. Every Cathara research facility opened for inspection. Full records of all experiments conducted on any intelligent species. Trial and execution of all individuals involved in torture of sentient beings. The Cathara leaders conferred among themselves, their crystal bodies flickering with internal light as they communicated. Finally, their spokesman returned. These terms are unacceptable. We are a scientific species acting according to our nature. What you call torture, we call necessary research. Other species exist to advance knowledge. This is the natural order. Kane felt his last hope for a peaceful resolution die. The Cathara couldn't change because they couldn't see other species as anything more than test subjects. They would never understand why their actions were wrong, because they fundamentally didn't believe other life forms deserved moral consideration. Dr. Kowalski, arm all Starfire weapons. Target the planet's major population centers. Elena Kowalski's hand shook as she entered the firing codes. General, Starfire weapons will turn the entire continental surface into molten glass. There won't be any survivors. That's the point, Doctor. Kane activated the fleet-wide communication system. All ships, this is General Kane. The Cathara have rejected our final offer for surrender. They have made it clear they will never stop treating intelligent life as experimental subjects. Today we end their threat permanently. May God forgive us for what we're about to do. The first wave of Starfire missiles launched from the fleet. These weren't conventional weapons. They carried fusion warheads designed to burn at stellar temperatures. When they hit, they would turn solid rock into flowing lava and boil away the atmosphere. "Sir, detecting massive underground movement on the planet," reported the sensor operator. "The Cathera are retreating to deep bunker systems." Kane nodded. The aliens had spent centuries building elaborate underground cities to protect their research facilities. But human engineers had planned for this. Deploy deep core penetrators. Target their bunker systems directly. The second wave of weapons was specifically designed to punch through kilometers of solid rock before detonating. The Cathera underground cities, built to protect against natural disasters and conventional attacks, weren't designed to withstand weapons that could melt their way to the planet's core. "General Kane," called Captain Rodriguez from his ship. "Long-range sensors are detecting Cathera archive ships launching from hidden facilities. They're trying to preserve their research data." Kane watched the tactical display as dozens of small Cathera vessels fled the planet. Each one carried centuries of research data, detailed records of experiments conducted on intelligent species across the galaxy. That information couldn't be allowed to survive. All fighter squadrons intercept and destroy those archive ships. No data survives. Human fighters swarmed after the fleeing vessels. The Cathera ships were fast and maneuverable, designed for research rather than combat. But they couldn't outrun weapons specifically designed to hunt down escaping targets. "Direct hit on primary research complex," reported the weapons officer. "Starfire impact successful. The facility is completely destroyed." On the main screen, Kane watched the surface of Zeftar Prime turn into a hellscape of flowing lava and boiling metal. The planet's atmosphere was burning away, leaving nothing that could support life. 3 billion Cathera were dying in fires hot enough to melt steel. "Sir, we're receiving multiple distress calls from the surface," Mitchell reported. "The Cathera are requesting immediate evacuation assistance." Kane listened to the translated pleas for help. The same voices that had calmly discussed human experiments were now screaming for mercy as their world burned around them. He felt no satisfaction in their suffering, but he couldn't forget what they had done to earn this fate. No response. "Continue the bombardment." Colonel Maria Santos led the ground assault teams to the planet's remaining underground facilities. Her soldiers wore full environmental suits to protect against the toxic atmosphere and extreme temperatures on the surface. Their mission was to locate and destroy any surviving research data or equipment. "General, this is Colonel Santos. We've reached the primary data storage facility. Sir, you need to see what we found here." The transmission from Santos showed vast chambers filled with crystal storage devices. Each one contained detailed records of experiments conducted on different alien species. Kane realized they were looking at the accumulated knowledge from 2,000 years of systematic torture and murder. "How much data, Colonel?" "Experiments on over 100 different species, sir. Complete biological analyses, psychological profiles, detailed records of pain tolerance and survival limits. General, they have data on species we've never even contacted. They've been hunting intelligent life across the entire galaxy." Kane studied the alien archives. The Cathera hadn't just been researching individual species. They had been mapping the biological and psychological weaknesses of all intelligent life. This was preparation for something much larger than random experiments. Destroy it all. Every storage device, every backup system. Nothing survives. "Yes, sir." "General, there's something else. We found their long-term planning files. They were preparing to capture and study every intelligent species in the galaxy. They saw themselves as the universe's primary researchers, with all other life forms serving as their subjects." Kane felt his decision validated once again. The Cathera hadn't been conducting random experiments. They had been planning galactic-scale genocide disguised as scientific research. They wanted to turn the entire universe into their laboratory. "Complete the mission, Colonel. Then get your people out of there." The bombardment continued for 6 hours. Starfire weapons turned the planet's surface into molten rock, while deep-core penetrators collapsed underground cities and bunker complexes. The few Cathera who survived the initial assault slowly died as their life support systems failed and their atmosphere burned away. "Final sensor sweep complete," reported the sensor operator. "No life signs detected on the planet's surface or in any underground facilities. Zeftar Prime is completely sterilized." Kane looked at the dead world on his screen. Hours ago, it had been home to 3 billion intelligent beings. Now it was a ball of cooling lava that would take centuries to become habitable again. He had just supervised the destruction of an entire planetary civilization. General incoming message from Admiral Chen, Mitchell announced. Sarah Chen appeared on the communication screen. General, we've completed operations in all other Cathara territories. 62 worlds completely sterilized, all space-based facilities destroyed. The nanoplagues are working as designed. Any surviving Kithra and quarantine systems will be dead within 4 months. Total casualties? Approximately 400 billion Kithara eliminated across all operations. We've reduced their population from a galactic civilization to scattered survivors hiding in deep space. Kane nodded. In less than a week, humanity had reduced the Kithara from a major spacefaring species to near extinction. It was the most complete military victory in human history, achieved through weapons so powerful they could reshape reality itself. Outstanding work, Admiral. Begin Phase 2. Hunt down all remaining survivors. Sir, long-range tracking has identified one major Kithara vessel that escaped our initial assault. It appears to be heading for the Galactic Rim, probably carrying the last of their leadership and research staff. Kane studied the tactical display. One ship, carrying perhaps the final few thousand Kithara in existence. They couldn't be allowed to escape and rebuild their civilization elsewhere, or worse, share their research with other hostile species. Admiral Chen, take your fastest ships and intercept that vessel. I want the Kithara extinct, not scattered. This ends completely or not at all. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the scout ship Final Solution, watching the last Kithara vessel drift helplessly in the void of deep space. 6 months had passed since the destruction of Zeftar Prime, and this research ship represented the final remnant of a species that had once numbered in the hundreds of billions. How many life signs? She asked. Approximately 3,000 Kithara aboard, reported Lieutenant Torres. The ship appears to be damaged. Their engine core is failing, and life support is running on emergency power. Sarah studied the alien vessel through the tactical display. It was smaller than most Kithara ships they had destroyed, designed for long-range research missions rather than carrying large populations. These were likely the last Kithara in existence, scientists, researchers, and possibly their leadership council. Any response to our hails? Yes, ma'am. They're requesting permission to surrender. Sarah almost smiled at the irony. The Kithara, who had spent centuries treating other species as laboratory animals, now wanted to surrender when they faced extinction themselves. They had never offered that option to their victims. Put them through. The main screen filled with the image of a Kithara that looked different from the others they had encountered. This one's crystal body was more elaborate, with complex patterns of light flowing through its structure. When it spoke, the translation carried a tone of desperate authority. Human military commander, I am Prime Researcher Zethkar, leader of the Kithara Science Council. We formally request asylum and protection under galactic law. Sarah studied the alien's face, looking for any sign of genuine remorse. On what grounds? We are the last representatives of our species. Surely even humans recognize the value of preserving scientific knowledge and biological diversity. We offer to share our research freely in exchange for our lives. Your research consists of detailed records of torturing and murdering innocent beings. Why would we want that knowledge? The alien seemed confused by her response. Our research represents thousands of years of advancement in biological sciences. We have unlocked the secrets of pain, fear, survival, and death across hundreds of species. This knowledge could benefit humanity greatly. Sarah felt her anger building. Even facing extinction, the Kithara couldn't understand that their research was actually systematic torture. They still saw it as valuable science rather than evidence of their crimes. Dr. Webb, analysis of their ship's databases? Marcus Webb looked exhausted and haunted. The months of studying Kithara research had clearly damaged him psychologically. Admiral, their archives contain detailed experimental data on over 200 intelligent species. Most of those species are now extinct. The Kithara didn't just study them, they hunted them to extinction for their research. How many species have they completely eliminated? At least 47 confirmed extinctions directly caused by Kithara research activities. They would capture entire populations, study them until they understood their biology and psychology completely, then eliminate them to prevent their research methods from being discovered. Sarah felt the last of her doubt disappear. The Kythera weren't just monsters who had targeted humanity. They were galactic-scale serial killers who had been systematically exterminating intelligent life for millennia. They were responsible for the deaths of entire civilizations. Commander Rodriguez, prepare a boarding party. I want to inspect their research facilities personally. Ma'am, is that wise? We could just scan the ship from here. No. If these are truly the last Kythera, I want to see exactly what we're dealing with before we make our final decision. An hour later, Sarah led a team of Marines aboard the Kythera research vessel. The interior was unlike any human ship, all crystal surfaces and flowing light with chambers designed for scientific work rather than comfortable living. But it was the research laboratories that confirmed her worst fears. The ship contained thousands of specimen containers, each one designed to hold a living subject for extended experimentation. Most were empty now, but the few that were occupied showed exactly what the Kythera considered acceptable research. Admiral, you need to see this, called Sergeant Williams from across the laboratory. Sarah approached a containment unit that held what appeared to be a small alien creature. The being was clearly intelligent. Its eyes tracked movement and it responded to voices. But its body showed signs of extensive surgical procedures, with parts removed and replaced with Kythera technology. It's still alive, Williams said quietly. They've been keeping it alive for months, maybe years, while they cut it apart and study how it reacts. Sarah read the Kythera notes attached to the container. The creature was from a species called the Vectari, and it was the last surviving member of its race. The Kythera had captured its entire species for research, studied them to death, and kept this one individual alive as a permanent test subject. There are dozens more like this, reported Dr. Webb. The Kythera keep representatives from extinct species alive indefinitely, using them for ongoing experiments. Some of these creatures have been tortured for decades. Sarah stared at the small alien in its crystal prison. Its species was extinct, its entire civilization destroyed by Kythera research, and now it existed only to suffer for alien science. She had seen enough. Rodriguez, prepare the mercy protocols. End the suffering of all test subjects. Yes, ma'am. Sarah returned to the command area of the Kythera ship, where Prime Researcher Zethkar waited with several other aliens. They seemed confident that their offer of scientific cooperation would save their lives. Have you reviewed our research archives? Zethkar asked. Surely you can see the value of our work. I've seen enough, Sarah replied. Your research consists of systematically torturing entire species to death. You've exterminated 47 intelligent civilizations for your experiments. Those species served the advancement of knowledge. Their sacrifice enabled us to understand the fundamental nature of intelligent life. Surely you can see the greater purpose. Sarah felt disgusted by the aliens' inability to understand basic morality. The greater purpose of what? You weren't advancing knowledge for anyone but yourselves. You were satisfying your own curiosity at the cost of genocide. We are scientists. Understanding the universe is our highest calling. These other species were primitive, unable to contribute meaningfully to scientific advancement. We made better use of their biological potential. Sarah realized that the Kythera would never understand why their actions were wrong. They were fundamentally incapable of seeing other species as deserving moral consideration. To them, intelligence was only valuable if it advanced Kythera research goals. Dr. Webb, what's your recommendation? Webb looked at the aliens with barely concealed hatred. Admiral, based on their research records and current behavior, the Kythera cannot be reformed or contained. They see all non-Kythera intelligence as existing solely for their research purposes. If we allow them to survive, they will eventually resume their activities. Even if we monitor them? Their entire species psychology is built around using other beings as test subjects. They can't conceive of any other relationship with intelligent life. Giving them asylum would be like releasing serial killers and hoping they change their nature. Sarah nodded. She had hoped to find some sign that the Kythera could learn to coexist peacefully with other species. Instead, she had found a group of aliens who couldn't understand why genocide was wrong. Zethkar, final offer. Unconditional surrender, complete cessation of all research activities, and submission to human authority for the remainder of your natural lives. The Kythera leader's crystal body flickered with indignation. Unacceptable. We are scientists, not servants. We demand recognition of our research rights and access to suitable test subjects for our work. Even facing the extinction of their species, the Kythera were demanding the right to continue torturing other beings. They couldn't change because they couldn't see anything wrong with their actions. Sarah activated her communicator. All teams return to the final solution. Prepare to implement final protocols. Admiral, Zethkar called out as the human teams prepared to leave. You cannot simply execute us. We have committed no crimes according to our own laws. We were following our nature as researchers. Sarah turned back to face the alien leader. Your nature is the problem. Some natures are too dangerous to exist. Back aboard the human ship, Sarah gave her final orders. Dr. Kowalski, deploy the enhanced nanoplague. I want this ship and everyone aboard it completely sterilized. Admiral, Dr. Webb said quietly. Are you sure about this? We're about to make the Kythera completely extinct. Once we do this, there's no going back. Sarah thought about the small alien creature she had seen in the research lab, the last of its species, kept alive for decades of torture by Kythera scientists. She thought about the human children found arranged at their school desks after being dissected alive. She thought about 47 extinct civilizations that had died to satisfy Kythera curiosity. I'm sure, some species are too dangerous to be allowed to survive. The nanoplague spread through the Kythera ship within minutes. Sarah watched on the sensors as 3,000 life signs vanished one by one. The last Kythera in existence died quickly and painlessly, far more mercy than they had ever shown their victims.